Thousands of children and families in Marion County struggle with issues like poverty, substance abuse, or mental and emotional illness. Many local services exist to help families in crisis, but families often don't know about these services or can't get to them. Unmet needs can result in child abuse, neglect, or juvenile delinquency. The Early Intervention Planning Council, through the Marion County Commission on Youth's Early Intervention and Prevention Initiative, has created a plan to give families earlier access to services in the hopes of reducing the number of children who get abused or neglected or turn to delinquent acts. We hope you enjoy our monthly program, Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities, and learn more about the local services here to help you.
Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode of Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities. Today's show is all about healthy relationships. This month is February. It's the month of love. And so we're focused on how parents and children can love each other and work through some of the challenges. I'm a parent, and parenting is not always the easiest thing, but we want to make sure that we nurture our children, love our children, and we know that that's best for them to grow up in healthy, happy environments. And that also makes better for healthier parents too and happier parents. So our guests here today are from Reach for Youth and also the health department with the Indianapolis Healthy Start program. So I'm going to let you ladies introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you do at your organizations, and then we'll talk more about how to build healthy parent-child relationships.
You want to go first?
Okay, sure. Well, good morning. My name is Felicia Williams. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator with Indianapolis Healthy Start. Our goal is to reduce the infant mortality in our zip code catchment area. We have 10 zip codes. My goal as a Community Engagement Coordinator, I go out into the community and I work with stakeholders, other prospective nonprofit organizations that really care about the household and dealing with mothers and the family and raising the children. We make sure that we encourage a safe dwelling for the mother and the child, because we know that it can be a difficult time when the mom finds out she's pregnant. We want to make sure that she's taken care of throughout the pregnancy and after the child has been delivered.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm Mara Weiss with Reach for Youth. Our mission is to empower Central Indiana youth and their families through prevention, intervention, counseling, and youth development initiatives. I am a youth therapist with Reach for Youth, so I work with youth ages 7 through 18 on pretty much anything that's going on with their life, often though it's issues with family, as well as depression, anxiety, substance abuse. And then I'm also the in-school teen court coordinator, so my job is to keep kids in school while addressing inappropriate school behaviors.
Okay, so you both have very small jobs.
No. Exactly.
Lots of work and lots of good work in the community. So tell me what it looks like to have a healthy parent and child relationship. As you're working with families, how do you know that there's a good, healthy relationship there?
Well, one thing that we look for, especially with our case managers with Healthy Start, the developmental process of the time that the mother, because we work with moms from the time they're pregnant up until the child is age 2, making sure that she's going to her prenatal care visits, making sure that she's receiving education on the prenatal vitamins, and when the child is delivered, we're really looking for that bond, that connection. We strongly encourage breastfeeding. That's one of the strongest bonds that a mother could have as soon as the child is born, and how she interacts with her child on a daily basis. So if she's making smiley faces, if she's reading to the child, if she is listening to the cues, like if the child is crying, understanding like if the child is hungry or whatever the child may need. And as the developmental stages move forward, 6 months, is the baby able to sit up on their own? Is the baby laughing? Is the baby crying a lot? We just look for different signs.
Okay.
So.
I'm always looking for engagement. Are they able to engage with each other? Since we work with a little bit older youth, I'm looking, are they both on their cell phone all the time, looking down, not looking at each other? Or is the parent able to tell me, I know that they had a really tough test this week, and I knew that that was a stressor for them. So do they know what's going on in their life, the activities they're engaged in? Do they know their friends? If I know what's going on with my child, then I'm more able to be able to support them and be able to have that healthy relationship.
Okay, so I love that I've got you two, because you're covering the gamut. You're covering from finding out I'm pregnant and what that looks like, because that bond does start then, and the care that a mother takes of her body and the things that she does translates into a lot of different things. And then on through adolescence.
The tough
and all
times.
those little things in between. And you talked a lot about reading to the child, and I know that reading does develop a significant bond.
Absolutely.
And it's very important for educational and for brain connections and that kind of stuff. What about parents who may have literacy issues and may not be able to read to their children? What are some suggestions or thoughts about ways to still develop that bond, even if reading may be a challenge?
Well, one of the good things, we are very fortunate to have partnered with Indianapolis Public Library.
Okay.
So they do have monthly programs to where if an individual is having literacy issues, they can go to the library and receive additional education. There could be a training facilitator there that can assist them with learning how to read. Okay. And as well as just making sure that you're being vocal and talking to the child, because just because you do not know how to read does not necessarily mean that you don't know how to speak. So just making sure that you're talking to the child, you're asking the child to go pick up blocks, you're engaging with them, like she said, and you're just keeping a positive connection with your child.
Okay, okay, that's great, because I know that just talking to your child is important.
Yes, absolutely.
And all the things that you do, changing the diapers, a conversation that you could be having during bath time, you could be talking, and pictures nowadays, there are a lot of pictures that have lots of, a lot of books that have lots of pictures, so even if you're not able to read the words, pointing out the pictures and just making up a story, kids love it, and they're very engaged in that type of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
okay. How does healthy parenting help prevent child abuse, neglect, and delinquency? Because my work is all about the prevention of child abuse, neglect, and juvenile delinquency. So how do the things that you're talking about actually help prevent that, both from, you know, parents hurting their kids, but then kids getting involved down the road and stuff that they shouldn't be?
There are protective factors in positive parenting. So being engaged in your child's community, that means that if you're really struggling, that might mean that you have a teacher you know you can go to because you know their teachers, or you know the school social worker. So when you're struggling with their behaviors, not on your own. Don't feel like there's not another way out, that you have the support that you need. So that's one of the kind of the biggest ways that I see, is that being able to engage with them and with the kind of the community around them, the support around them, it gives the parent a support system as well.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of what she had mentioned as far as kind of like a wraparound service and being engaged, starting at a younger age. We are currently working with the CDC. They have a curriculum called Legacy for Children, and it is a more intervention-based approach where we're going to facilitate working with moms, and we're going to have the moms working together collectively as a group, and then they'll have mom and child time. We are going to encourage the mothers to talk amongst each other to say, you know, what are some of the practices that you use in your household, because we know that there is no perfect way to raise your child, but you also want to have that community-based feeling and understanding to make sure that you have a support system, if you will. So if they're noticing things are going wrong with a child who is 24 months, or, you know, they're not reaching their developmental milestones, they're able to communicate with the moms and, you know, to talk about, you know, how do you do discipline, or, you know, what are your positive reinforcements or negative reinforcement if a child behaves right or wrong.
Disciplines, I'd say, one of the biggest things we see is struggling with discipline.
Okay.
And consistent discipline then is what I always encourage parents. One of the first questions I ask when we start to talk about inappropriate behaviors in an assessment is, well, what kind of discipline did you use? And often I hear, well, I tried this and it didn't work when I tried it, so I don't know what to do now.
Okay.
So being consistent.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about discipline, because sometimes discipline turns into punishment, which then can lead to abuse and neglect, or really hurting a child when maybe that's not the intent, but you feel like you've lost it and you have no other ways or coping mechanisms. So what role does discipline play in here, and how do we teach parents what's good ways to discipline your kids and not good ways? What age does that start? What does that look like?
Discipline is huge, and it's difficult,
It is.
and a lot of it's cultural and learned. A lot of it is learned behaviors. We see a lot of generational issues with discipline. This is what my parents did to me, and I know that we've had some kind of changes in the structure of our culture when it comes to what's appropriate discipline. What does that look like? Who's supposed to discipline? So when I work with my families, I often come up with a behavior contract. So it's, what are the expectations of behaviors for the youth and of the family. We don't want to set up a situation where the youth have different expectations from their siblings or from the parents. Everyone should be respectful. That can be a family expectation. And then there are consequences for that. If you're not respectful, this is the first time this is the first consequence you get, and maybe it's minor consequence. You get something taken away for an hour until you can be appropriate, and then continuing to build if the behaviors continue, being consistent with them. But then there are also rewards in that discipline process. They understand if my behaviors are appropriate, I get something for it, and I understand there's positive reinforcement in that.
And I would also say we don't encourage to go in to tell the parent, like I said, what to do, because depending on the dynamic of their household, it may be a generational issue to where how they were raised. But we do encourage them, well, what have you tried in the past? What did you feel was has worked and what has not worked? And we do invite, with one of the classes that we provide at Healthy Start is a positive parenting class. We talk to the moms. What has worked for you in the past? What do you think would be going too far? But we know that it's never too late to start discipline, but of course you want to start as early as possible. So if you're working with a 10-month-old or 1-year-old and they're grabbing things and they're dropping things on the floor, it's like the hot cold, like don't touch the stove. You just want to make sure that you're pointing out things and saying, hot, or, not nice, or you just making sure that you remind the child so the child can understand certain things to say, okay, well, Mommy said that this may not be a good thing, so maybe I won't go out here. And also for health and safety purposes as well, too, like maybe going out in the street or, playing too close to the curb, things of that nature.
And I think you're right on with the earlier you start, the better. And a lot of that is just establishing clear boundaries and clear limits, and that can be from infancy on, and particularly once you get into that, when kids start moving and start getting
crawling
into stuff. Understanding that no means no, and what's safe and what's not safe for them, and being very consistent about all of that. And also understanding developmentally what kids should be and should not be doing. And I think that's a big barrier and a challenge as a parent is not understanding that. So what your expectations are, and it's not even chronological. Again, developmental doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as what age. Because kids have different levels of needs, and so understanding developmentally, like where your child is and developmentally, then they should be grabbing things. They should be dropping things. That's what they're supposed to do. Again, that doesn't mean you can't set limits around what it is, but allowing them to explore, and recognizing that at some developmental ages things just aren't appropriate, and how you manage that also. Because I have a almost 4-year-old who is the size of a 5.5-year-old, and so sometimes there are expectations placed upon him because he looks like he should be doing things that he's not yet, because developmentally he's not there. So again, it's kind of recognizing that and understanding that some of the things I say to him or expect him to do is just not appropriate because he's not as big as he looks.
And we see the same thing with trauma. So understanding that if there's trauma in earlier childhood, that for a teenager, they might not be developmentally where you want them to be or think that they should be. So recognizing that the boundaries you set might need to be different for a 15-year-old with trauma versus a 15-year-old without that trauma. Is important.
Correct. And lots of changes and transitions in life, which I think also kind of manifests itself in trauma.
Absolutely. Middle school is traumatic.
Yes, it is.
And it's a stressful time around the holidays as well, too, for the household, especially if there are families that are in need. It could kind of filter through the entire household. So it can be a stressful situation.
Absolutely.
So as a parent, being flexible.
Absolutely.
Always being flexible, recognizing when your kids are struggling and challenged, when, sometimes you need to kind of be firm, and then there's times when you need to kind of back off a little bit, and I've had to learn that. I also have a 9-year-old that sometimes it's like, okay, I know this is a consequence for this behavior, but this behavior seems to be a little, something else is going on, and I need to take the time to find out what that is before I just jump right into a consequence because you know better, which we sometimes get into that routine. So,
absolutely.
What activities should parents be doing with their children to foster those good relationships?
I think when they're older, it's just opening up a space for conversation.
Okay.
That doesn't have to be formal. I tell my parents often that even sitting in a car and just talking about the music that they're listening to, saying, hey, why don't you turn on the station you like, and then tell me about why you like that song. It can be really informal, or it can be more formal, like, hey, how was science class today? What'd that look like for you? Do you have anything big coming up? So opening up a space for safe conversation. And then when they start to have bigger stuff coming up, then that's when that healthy relationship really pays off, because then they're more willing to tell you about the bigger stuff that maybe they'd be scared to share previously.
And as the child progresses from birth and going into the young adolescent phase, it's very important that they, and I cannot stress it enough, the critical time is when the mom finds out she's pregnant. That's where the education and the communication really needs to start happening, because after the child is into the world, the child is completely dependent upon you. They're helpless. They need your guiding, loving, and support and encouragement. So you want to provide a very safe haven, if you will, within the household, and you want to encourage the different feeding cues. You want to encourage reading the books. You want to encourage the smiley faces, making facial expressions, so they're able to kind of reciprocate that and give it back to the mother and saying, okay, she's smiling, I'm smiling, and just saying, even the tone in your voice can really have an impact on a child, because they hear so much. So if it's being very loud, the child may close in. They may not feel as comfortable. But if it's more of a calm and soothing connection with the mom and the child, or the father and the child, the baby is able to adapt to that, and they're very familiar and understand and hear mom and dad's voice. So they key in on that. So just keeping the communication going, having the tummy time all the way up to the building blocks, and just making sure that you're exploring every avenue, especially like going around the household, and then allowing the child to just kind of be on the floor with a set of toys and just observe and see how they interact.
Good. Those are all wonderful. And there's lots of other activities that happen in our community.
Absolutely.
We've got a wonderful children's museum and a zoo and all of those, both, and the Eiteljorg and the State Museum. We've got wonderful parks, and a lot of those have lots of family activities.
Absolutely.
The library has lots of free family activities.
Georgia Street's been doing more.
Georgia Street's been
Absolutely.
doing more, so, and I know that McCoy, we have our youth activity directory that has a listing of lots of activities that are available. The Indy Parks puts out a guide every, I think, spring and fall, and we've also done some activity calendars. So there's lots also of ways for parents to see the activities where they can go out and do things with them in the community. Again, with the thought that parents aren't going to be on their cell phones the whole time while their kids are doing things, but finding ways to engage in those activities and having fun, going to the children's museum and splashing around in the little water and the building area and stuff, and participating in things with their kids. So lots of things, and like I said, there's a lot of opportunities that are available for free. So for families who may not always be able to afford the memberships and stuff, there's lots of ways to engage. Going for walks. I mean, my kids love to just go outside and go for a walk.
Nature.
Volunteering with each other. I encourage that a lot. We have the Teen Court program, so 11 through 18 they can volunteer, and often parents come and hang out with us and watch the Teen Court process, and then they're able to engage in a conversation about what that looks like.
That's a good way to instill communication, making sure that it's a community-oriented family. So if they see the mom and the dad doing it, it can filter down to the child as well too, and then they'll grow up with a sense of possibly understanding. Giving back to the community is what I've always been a part of. So that's good. Right. That's a good positive.
Yep, it's important. So tell us a little bit more about how families that are interested in getting involved in your services. So how do folks get to Reach for Youth? What all do you do? And
we have a lot of programming. So we have the Teen Court program, and we have counseling. So we have family counseling, individual counseling. Obviously, because we work with youth, we work with their families as well. It is family oriented. And they can call us. Our number is 317-920-5900. They set up an assessment with us, and then can get involved in our services. We also provide a lot of services to schools, so families can find out about those as well. We provide a healthy relationships workshop in schools. It's related to teen dating violence. It's what we focus on, but we really encourage the fact that these healthy relationships can be between peers, teen dating violence, but they can also be between your parents. We're trying to instill respect in them, communication, mutual decision making, which is all important for healthy relationships with parents as well.
Thank you.
And for Indianapolis Healthy Start, as soon as a mother finds out that she is pregnant, she's more than welcome to call our phone number, which is 221-2317. We work with the mom from the time she's pregnant up until the child is age 2, if she's in our 10 zip code catchment area. If the mother is not, we are definitely open within Marion County. We do have free health education classes. So we provide car seat safety, our safe sleep program, our positive parenting classes, and we do have a program that was funded by ISDH. It is called Baby and Me Tobacco Free. So if there are any moms within Marion County that are currently pregnant and smoking and they want to quit smoking, we do have an incentivized program that they can call, they can sign up to be a part of it, and if they are successful with being smoke-free by the time the baby is born, they can receive a $25 gift voucher to Walmart or CVS for up to a year for diapers.
Nice.
So we try to not only focus on the moms that are in our catchment area, but also the surrounding Marion County areas as well too.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much, ladies. I really appreciate it. Lots of good information was shared, lots of helpful information. I know that your services are available to all residents in the area in Marion County and Indianapolis, and so hopefully some of our viewers will tune in and will seek you out. So thank you very much again for being here, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities, and we look forward to seeing you again the next time.